All right. Hi, everybody. This is Erica from In the Company of Cards. Welcome to another Sunday conversation. And this one is with our good friend, Dr. Lena Rodriguez from Tarot Down Under. Dr. Lena, so glad we were able to connect. I know my people were like, is she okay?
I'm so sorry about yesterday,
Uh,
exactly. But
you're
because
really
I
good.
work across so many time zones,
But
it
you're
has to
so
happen.
good at that. You're so good at that. I am terrible, but you're always good because you say, okay, so it's going to be at this time on your clock,
Yeah, just stick
which,
to the other
which I
person.
really appreciate because I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. So for me, sometimes that 3 hour difference will flummox me. But you know
Yeah.
what? These things happen. It all worked out.
And
Uh,
we're here now.
and here we are. Yes. So welcome, Dr. Lena.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone is recovered or recovering from uh, yesterday. And I'm not going to say yesterday's festivities.
No.
Yesterday's observation of probably the most ironic day that we've had in a long time.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so the bill has been signed with a flyover of a bomber. And a speech has been given where you know who said that he hates half the country. He hates the Democrats. They hate him, and he hates the. I mean, this is his Fourth of July message. Uh, so yes, so here we are.
Here we are.
What are you all thinking about on your side of the world about this?
Well, we're sort of more connected, whether we want to or not, with China. And so hostilities towards China make us more vulnerable.
Sure.
So we see it through that lens of a different geography.
Hmm.
But that took us a century or more to work out our geography. But look, now we are concerned. So then, if you look at the world more broadly outside of the States, everyone what a ridiculous opening statement, but
Most
most
people.
people are actually flummoxed by the state of play in the US. I think most people thought the legal system would stand up more than it has. They thought the legacy media would do a better job than they have. Thought there would be more visible protests on the street. So the No Kings was great, but the protest to be effective need to be in waves and so forth. So we're a bit puzzled um, by the risks this man is taking with the global economy,
Well, as well.
not just the American
Oh,
economy.
as well you should be. I think he is out of control.
Mm.
He changes on a dime. I think it's just whoever is last in his ear and what kind of a mood he's in that dictates
Literally,
does.
literally. And I've never seen such a rapid realignment of security partnerships.
Yeah,
And it's very different from his first term,
yeah.
where everyone was just, treading water until he was gone. Um, and this time, Europe particularly is realigning at warp speed,
As they should. I mean,
as they need to. They have
right,
to.
because of course, eventually he will not be there anymore. But the fact of the matter is, supposedly, this will continue. We have an election every 4 years for president. And if we could be this destabilized so quickly, what's to say that it couldn't happen again? I think the
Exactly.
world order has absolutely changed. I think our primacy is no longer a thing. I don't think we will ever regain it because if you could do it once, you can do it again. You're not a trustworthy partner.
And I think that's true, Erica, in the sense that's why these realignments are
Right,
happening. It's
right.
because of the what if factor.
That's right.
if
That's
it's this bad now, the problem that America will experience now as a nation that's used to telling itself about its own supremacy, that is actually gone. It
right.
doesn't matter who gets in the next one, actually, because that's why you have these pacts and countries formerly known as allies.
Yeah.
That's what gives the main player more gravitas. The more people you have in that grouping, the stronger the primary power. And because he doesn't understand anything about politics, history, economics,
That's
this is a fatal mix. It is
yes.
the
Fatal.
end
Mhm.
of that cycle of supremacy.
It's fatal to the world order as we've known it. Now, I will say, I'm not convinced that that's the worst thing in the world.
No.
I think that it's time that we took our place as, one among many nations. That we humble ourselves. We're a very young nation. In the speech that I read by Frederick Douglass yesterday, there's a portion that I didn't read, but I referenced, where he says several times in that speech, he says, you know, the good news is that you're a very young country. Now, at the time, the country was what, like 75 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he says if you were an old country, like, Europe or somewhere, you might say, oh my God, and things are going like this, I guess they'll never be any better because, we've always been this way and how can we change? But the fact that the US is a young nation means that there's all the possibility in the world to become that more perfect union. Okay, well, that was when we were 75 years old. We're about to be 250 years old.
Mhm.
And in many ways, things have not changed much at all. In
Mhm.
fact, we're going back to the era that he wrote or gave that speech in, which was in 1852, I think,
Right.
before the war.
Mm.
So, now what are we doing? We're talking about, I mean, I don't, you've probably heard this. So he has all of the farmers are mad and the hoteliers are mad because they can't staff their farms and their resorts. So he has come up with a plan where these farmers and these hoteliers will be responsible for people who come into the country for a certain period of time, kind of like a guest worker program,
Sponsorship sort of thing.
sponsorship. And so you come and you work on a farm. So let's say it's a farm. And let's say that you're getting paid, I don't know, $5 an hour. But you know somebody down the street, the next farm over, who's getting $7 an hour. You can't leave where you are to go to that other farm because you
Mm.
are bound to that one. If
Yeah.
if you leave or you say I'm not working, I want to go, then you're deported. Now, to me, we're talking about indentured servitude,
It's indentured service.
which
That's
is
exactly
just
what it
a
is.
little step from slavery.
Yeah. That you get this token amount as opposed to nothing.
Right.
But that token amount is eroded in all sorts of directions too, because they charge for accommodation, which is usually just a shipping container or a throw to, or a thing, that is totally inadequate.
They will have
But you
to
have
pay
to pay for that.
taxes. They have to pay taxes apparently on their
Yeah.
whatever they make. Yeah. So it's slavery. Now I will say that there is a cabal of people who are part of Project 2025. They're called dominionists. Do you know about them?
Yeah, I've heard the term, but I don't really understand it.
So the
Can you explain?
dominionists believe that God ordained that that white men run this country.
Because
And
they are naturally
that's right.
superior in
That's
God's
right. That's
eyes.
right. And so they are in favor of slavery. They certainly are not in favor of the vote for women,
Mm.
etc. And what they are systematically doing is moving us back towards that time. So, for
Yeah.
example, to vote as a woman now, in certain places, you have to have certain kinds of ID. And if you changed your name to your married name.
Yes, I couldn't believe
That's what
it.
you're supposed to do. Right. It's all a way to disenfranchise
So
women.
that's all under
That's
dominionism.
all
Okay.
under dominionism. You've got people like Yarvin. These are people who believe that really democracy is not an appropriate form of government. That what we need is a monarchy, but it's not. It's not a hereditary monarchy. It is a money monarchy. So
Yes.
whoever's the head will be, one of these tech bro people.
Mm.
And so this is why a lot of people with the healthcare, people losing healthcare, I think that part of the master plan is that people will die. It's why you get rid of FEMA. And
Yeah.
so people will die. If they die, that's good because that's fewer people you have to worry
Not
about.
a problem.
And then everybody else will become a drone because
Yeah.
the AI will be doing all the jobs. In
Mm.
America, I don't know how it is in Australia, but if you go to a party or something and you meet someone for the first time, you'll get asked two questions, your name and what
Mm.
you do.
Mm.
In Europe, it's not that way.
No.
No, but here it is. So people are very identified with their job.
Hmm.
A lot of these jobs are going to go by the boards because AI will be doing them and doing them ostensibly better than a human being can do. Well,
Mm.
this is to press. So, for example, let's say you're an artist or you're a writer.
Mm.
AI can do that like that, something that
Mm.
will take you months and years to do.
Yes.
So it's about demoralizing people, reducing them essentially to drones, worker
Hmm.
for the good of the few. So that's, I feel like, the overall plan. And slavery is absolutely a part of it.
Yes. Yes. And it's like a tech feudalism.
Yes,
So what is revered is your tech prowess and your actual stated income.
right.
I think what they don't realize in this is, well, it's an extension in a way of normal hardline capitalism, which is what you were saying at a party. What do you do? So it's an extension of a perceived set of social rewards. And that is changing, leaving people floundering,
That's right.
right?
Right.
Because of the lack of appreciation as a society for other things that can't be converted readily to hard currency.
That's right. Well, if you look at this country, what was it founded on? Slavery and the dollar.
And the stealing of indigenous lands, meaning,
Exactly.
oh, we just want it. Why are you in our way?
That's right.
Like stopping at nothing
Right.
to acquire that land. And then exactly on the backs of slaves. And the early immigrants too, like the Chinese were considered the
Right. And the
most
railroad.
disposable
Hmm.
of a hierarchy of crap.
Well,
And
I don't think you can fix or rebuild, and I said this in my Substack, on a foundation of quicksand.
that's right.
It's impossible. So the fact that we are undergoing this great dismantling, I think, is necessary. I mean, if we're going to become a more perfect union, we have to really do some analysis about the kind of union that we've been. And I think we've been delusional about telling ourselves stories.
Absolutely delusional. But it's also what it reminds me of. I'm just thinking now. Remember in the early 90s, the first .com everything,
Yeah,
and the tacit promise to white America and white Australia and white everything was your kids don't have to work in factories anymore. Your kids won't have to struggle. They'll become dot com. It was the same fantasy,
right.
exactly the same fantasy. They'll move and be ultra wealthy because they'll be highly skilled in this techno arena. And if you can't hack the pace, then I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. Now, that didn't happen then.
Oh,
Now, admittedly, technology has swept on since those times, but I don't know that it could be played out even with the worst will in the world. We talk about the best will in the world, but even with the worst will in the world, we can see it taking over huge tracts of workplace activities. But will it get there in the end? Because the problem is these guys like Curtis Yarvin, like Musk, like them, they're so inadequate as humans. So the mistake they make, I would like to think this is a thing. The mistake they make is they underrate humans every waking moment because their buzz, their excitement, their rewards are in this machine world, not a people world.
okay. I would like to think that you're right too, but we also have these other factors. So, for example, we have the cult of Trump. It's become a messianic cult.
Mm, mm,
So there's that. And then I'm going to just say there is the entire racial component. That America, that's the other thing aside from the dollar bill and the desire to acquire land that's not yours, is this whole racial um, schism
mm,
that too many people have spent too many years not even seeing as a schism.
mm,
I mean, as I said to you before we went on the air, and I might have said this yesterday in my video, but I I I feel for um, white people of goodwill. I'm just going to put it like that,
mm,
who are saying to themselves, "Well, wait a minute, where am I? What happened?"
mm.
They didn't know this country was this way.
So bad,
Just like the world didn't. They
so
didn't
bad.
either.
Mm.
I think that waking up to that has got to be just painful
And frightening.
and
And
frightening. And I think that there is a big temptation to say, you know what, I'm going to do like Sleeping Beauty and I'm going to go back to sleep. I'm just going to, whatever happens, happens, and I'm not even going to be
mm,
bothered with it. I mean, there's the danger of that. And then you
mm.
do have a civilization of drones because nobody's
Yes,
coming together. I mean, that's part of the whole plan too, is to keep us separated by race. Do you understand what I'm saying? In
yeah,
other words, if the
absolutely.
right, I mean, look at the Trumpers. They don't just love Trump and the movement. They are the movement. They are him, and he is,
Mm,
and
mm.
he's telling them, we are up here, everybody else is down here. And of course, who doesn't want to be up here? So there's no
And
coming together class-wise. You would think that there would be.
well, that's what I was just about to say, the C word, I suppose,
Yeah,
because they identify with his 78-year-old views of race. They love that. But there's a million miles of class difference between them. And part of the problem for America, apart from not dealing ever with racialized issues, is not dealing with class issues.
right,
And Australia has a similar pattern in the sense we say, well, there's no such thing as class. It's an egalitarian society. So that's what the US told itself. That's what Australia told itself.
right.
And so, to a certain extent, that played out through the relative prosperity of the Second World War, that, immigrants could do well as a business and make money and maybe own an investment property or two or do very well or whatever, whatever. There was enough to duct tape over the
Mhm.
class issues, whereas class affects everything.
That's right.
So one of the um, topics I used to teach my nursing students was health by postcode or zip code, as you say,
Mhm,
health by zip code.
mhm.
And you can actually predict very accurately from where someone is born the likelihood of certain illnesses, the management of preventable illnesses and the lack of management, and the projected outcome, meaning a shorter
Right,
lifespan,
right.
because you're born in that zip code. So the zip code gave me an opportunity to also talk about race because inevitably
That's right.
the zip codes reveal what's going on.
They call it redlining here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so this is a real thing. But when you've got societies that tell themselves, oh, it's not like the UK. We don't have class. It's a level playing field. You just work hard and all that stuff. The mythology builds. And so when it crashes, like now, so for many Americans who have bought into the idealized America and have complied and worked many decades and thought their 401 was intact and have played the game and towed the line, it's massively threatening now that the walls are being taken away.
well, and it's not just these people who've worked for decades and it's young, there are young
Oh,
people.
young people start.
That's the thing. We used to say, oh, the old ones are going to die out and everything will be okay. No, that's not how it's worked.
Well, we collectively are the first generation since the Second World War to, by all measures, leaving our young people going backwards
Right.
in all our countries. There was an incremental creep before in most families, regardless. Now that's over.
Right.
Our
And
young
so you
people,
have to find somebody to blame for that, right?
yes, and
Right.
it's not Mexican drag queens,
No, and it's not DEI.
and it's not DEI, replaced by DUI in the case
Yes,
of headset.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, so people never understood it in the first place.
Right. Right.
DEI, but they went with it because it was a different cultural tone. By that, I mean, democratic waves and this and that. So it was considered bad form to be too critical, but people still didn't get it,
No.
why there would be a need for such a thing,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
yeah, well, and now we have incompetence running things at every level, but at least they're white, thank God.
Oh, no, I
I,
know.
we were you before we came on, we were talking about, I'm sure you've all heard it or seen the news about the flooding in Texas and the loss of life there. There's a Christian camp and there's 20 little girls that were at this camp. They can't find them. And in addition, there's something like 14 other children and scores of adults who have died. And there are floods. I mean, flooding is a thing, that's true, but they didn't have a warning that there was going to be floods. What I'm really curious to see is, people ask me all the time. They send me emails. They do it on my YouTube or my Substack. Erica, how long is this going to last? How long? When is this going to be over? The sad thing is, I think it's going to have taken things like losing your child in a flood because there was no FEMA or NOAA.
Mm,
Do you know what I'm saying? Um, Losing your SNAP, losing your Medicare and
mm,
Medicaid.
mm,
Personally, I think it's going to have to hit, I guess, because Americans are Americans and it's all
mm,
about the money. It's
mm,
going to have to hit people where it hurts them personally in
mm.
their pocket or in their private lives for people to see this is maybe not the right path to be on.
And the problem is, as always, if they've got a displacement paradigm to put it in. So with the parents of the Texas girls in the Christian camp, it'll be, God has taken my baby, only the good
I
go
hope,
well.
yeah, I hope not. I mean, I hope
I
that,
hope not too, but I'm being devil's advocate
yeah,
here.
yeah, it
This
could
is
be.
how they delude
Yes.
themselves through the thing. And even with things like losing SNAP, um, all the obvious direct things that you think now they'll get it. What worries me is the right of only have to put out some sort of absolutely delirious narrative and they'll grab hold of that.
Right. Well, we all got a letter from Social Security, those of us who are old enough,
Oh, yeah, what was that about?
saying that we weren't going to have to pay taxes on our Social Security. Now, first of all, let me just say the fact that we have to pay Social Security taxes in the first place
Yes.
is a bit much because we already paid tax on
Yes,
that,
yes.
earned it. But okay. But the thing is, it won't offset what you're
No.
using. That's the problem. But it's kind of like what during COVID when we were waiting for relief checks from the government and we had to wait because he had to put his signature on there
Mhm.
to let everybody know that the money came from
Mm,
Trump.
mm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I think there are going to be a lot of people who are so excited about not having their Social Security taxed that they'll say, well, I'm glad I voted for that guy until they realize
Yes.
that it's
And they have to, as you say, they have to live it, feel it, taste it, you know,
exactly,
because
exactly.
they won't join the dots.
That's right.
Mm.
And the problem is the rest of us who have gotten this a long time ago have to kind of sit and wait for them to catch up because either we all sink or we all
And that's coming back to your question or the question you're asked, when will this end?
sink.
And my answer to that generally, and I don't want to sound like a smartass when I say that, I mean this very deeply, it will end when enough of the American people rise up and say no more
Exactly. I can't tell you how many
and
times
not to.
I brought up the French and I've said, the French know how to do it. The general strike, that is, I mean, I'm not talking about guillotines or anything like that. I'm talking about the
No,
general strike. They have that perfected to an art form.
exactly.
That's
And
what
so do other European countries,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
In Greece, it's part of your calendar if you're planning to visit, relatives in another place. You look at when's the next general strike because there won't be any
Ah,
variants.
see?
It's completely normal to do it, and everyone abides by it. The problem with since Reagan defanging the union and
Yeah,
encouraging the individual. So
yes.
most people, even if you called a general strike in the US,
They won't
most
observe
people
it.
would still go to work
No, I've had people say things
because
like,
there's no collective mentality.
right. So when we had the Father's Day, I think was when we had that the big protest, and people were all upset. They were saying, "Well, that's I mean that's Father's Day. People have plans, or that's Easter. People have plans,
Mhm.
or it's 4th of July. Nobody's going to come out." Do you not understand the concept of a general
Yeah,
strike and maybe
yes,
but you know what? That you're right because we pride ourselves on what they call rugged individualism.
yes. And I'll give you an example between Sydney and Melbourne in Australia. So Sydney, very beautiful city, and but it's very flashy and high end, and what do you earn? And it's very high
Mhm,
powered. Melbourne has always supported the arts and always been a Labor state.
mhm,
So in Sydney, if say there's a transport strike, everyone will be furious, because they're trying to get to some million cars on the road.
right.
What they do in Melbourne is they say, no, our strike is we're going to refuse to collect fares. So the transport will still be available, but we're not collecting fares. So everyone is going up the union as you go past.
Yes,
It's creativity, lateral thinking,
that's great.
and we keep voting Labor, 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 Labor
Yeah,
because of these things,
that's
right?
great. That's well, we are so as Americans so conditioned, like a knee-jerk reaction to sneer at anything that smacks of socialism, communism, collective anything. I mean, I remember being a little girl learning a song to the tune of uh, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, except the
Oh,
words were Khrushchev, the bald-headed Russian.
yeah.
So, I mean, but we have this guy in New York, what is this?
Mamdani.
Mamdani, who is quite the breath of fresh air,
Mm,
calls himself a social democrat, a socialist democrat, democratic,
yeah.
but is being attacked from both. Uh,
Everyone.
I
And
mean,
yet he's so popular.
he's popular because he's talking about things that people
Yes.
want in their lives. But because it's not, because it smacks of socialism, people aren't even,
Mm.
they're not even cognizant of what that even means.
No, no, people couldn't give you a definition
They
if their
could
life
not.
depended on it.
No.
Mm,
So, I mean, I hope New York, I hope he is okay. I do think they're going to do their best to ride him out on a rail. We know
sure.
that 47 said, oh, he's going to, maybe that he can be deported. Um, I think we have a long way down farther to sink, Lena,
Mm.
frankly, before we come back up for air.
Well, I think so. And people don't want to hear it,
Mm,
but it's really important. And I use the phrase, it's going to get worse before it gets worse.
right,
Right. And then, depending how people react,
right.
will determine the ultimate outcome. Because at the moment, the legal system is not protecting the Constitution.
I think
It's
the lower
not.
courts are trying, but I think that
Yeah, yeah, but they're
the
being
high
let down
court,
and sabotaged as
yes,
soon as things get to this. The Supreme Court could reverse their immunity ruling for Trump.
but they
They
won't.
said it one way, they could, but they won't. Of
But you
course, they
know
won't.
what? Wait a minute. Do you know that Obama didn't never raised a stink when McConnell slow walked and then never approved the confirmation of Garland for the Supreme Court. Obama
Mm,
did not, he never said a mumbling word. He
mm,
never complained. Biden never expanded the court. That should
yeah.
have been the first thing that he did when he got behind that desk is
Mm.
expand the court. So, you have to say to yourself, where are really the bad guys here? I think there's bad guys on both sides. Some of it could
Yeah, and I think the appointment of Merrick Garland in that role was fatal, the
yes,
J6
yes,
inquiry. It was actually fatal. He had 4 years
years.
and he wasn't even closer at the end.
Nope,
Like we all cut him slack for 6 months because, oh, there's Trump
right,
people in the DOJ and all of that. But wrong man for the job at the
job.
wrong time of history. You needed a mongrel
That's
in
right.
there, as we would say in
That's
Australia.
right.
Look what Bill Barr did in 5 minutes.
That's
He
right.
ate the Mueller report and spat out the staples
Right. That's exactly, oh,
in
good.
5 minutes,
That's
right? It was
yes,
done. Hundreds of investigators, 2 years' work, and he killed that as Attorney General. And
yes.
now he does the book tours, how Trump is so terrible. How dare he? How dare he, when he did that.
Oh,
But the point is, the Democratic leadership are too soft for this time in history.
well, you know
Too
what though?
deep.
I'll tell you what. You've got the Democrats, and there's two kinds of Democrats. You've got the progressives, and we know who those all are,
Mm.
Jasmine and AOC and uh, uh,
Even Elizabeth Warren, bless
Elizabeth
her.
Warren,
Yeah.
uh, the old guy, Sanders. I mean,
Uh,
so we can name them, but then you have everybody else, and they are neoliberals.
Absolutely devoted to the neoliberal project, which
Exactly.
was the 2025 of its day.
Yes, this was Reagan. You've got Obama praising Reagan. So they
Yeah.
they are not trying to have their boat rocked. Pelosi, and I heard this on something, I forget, it was MSNBC, I guess it was Ali Velshi had a guest, and talking about Pelosi, saying that at the time, remember Pelosi said, oh, he's not worth it. Trump's not worth pursuing. Well,
Mm,
because she had her own financial interests, all her little ducks in a row, and she didn't want to rock any boats. So we
mm,
really have to look at both parties. In January, we have the election in November. Granted, we have holidays and everything else. But why in January, when he starts spouting what he's going to do, you know who,
mm.
when we asked the Democrats, what is the plan? You know what they said? The guy, Ken Martin, who nobody even heard of,
Yeah.
the head of the party, he said, give us time. What?
I know, and they're still saying that.
They're still saying that. Give us.
Wait till the midterms and we're going to be really tough. What planet are they on? The country is being dismembered in front of their eyes,
Right.
and you've got Hakeem Jeffries, who's, in my opinion, way too cool for school.
His speech
And
was great the other day. He did a
I
great,
know he can give a good speech,
he gave a
but,
good speech, but that's about
and
it.
that was the famous 10 hours once or something,
Yeah.
but people aren't listening to
No,
that 10-hour speech. What he's not doing as well is you've got to talk in sound bites.
that's right.
Now, if you watch the Dems with any of the people who are up for appointment and stuff in Congress, they do a fantastic job.
Right. Of
Like
grilling
in
them.
legal stuff, really tough. They're well informed, they're prepared, they're ready to go. But no one watches congressional proceedings.
That's right.
You've got to reduce that 6 hours into a spit,
That's right.
right? To actually capture the imagination. So there's this disconnect, both ideologically with the older Dems and with the other ones in
It's the
terms
messaging. They
of,
don't know how to message.
yeah, the message is not getting through.
Right.
And this is the golden era for opposition, if
That's right.
nothing else. If you can't use this time, God help you going forward, because really,
Exactly. I will say, though, I do not think Elon's push for a third party is going to go anywhere.
oh, I hope not. I hope not.
I don't think so. I mean, who's going to be in that? Who would be in it?
Ah, the worry is, this is my fear.
Yeah.
Um, and he's talking about the people. We need a party that represents the people. People are so naive and desperate in
But
many ways. I'm worried that
no,
he can polish the turd, as we used to
I don't
say.
think so. God, you're full of these. No, you know why? Because people, instead of blaming Trump for Doge, they blame Musk for.
Oh, I know that. But my worry is they have no memory. That it's not a sustained memory. This is my fear talking, not what I think will actually happen. Like on paper, if you ask me right now, if he launched it next week, everyone hates Elon. Right? That's not the problem.
But people's memories are short.
But people's memories are really short. You spin it, and they'll go, "Oh, well, he did Doge, but now look, it worries the hell out of me because people feel they're wedged between the two conventional parties. I am worried because third parties are always a problem for other, but don't write him off yet. And
Hmm. Well,
oh,
he's the poor thing. He's quite a mess. I mean, I've said from the beginning, I did this whole video on the red hats versus the black hats. And I saw the red hats winning. And so far they have because Musk is on the outside. And Musk can have all the money in the world. There's a lot of power in the presidency. There's a lot.
oh, absolutely, which is why the theatre of it is fascinating.
The theater of it is fascinating, but if you want to blackmail an American president, you can do it from outside. You can't do it from inside. I mean, he could be sent back to South Africa.
Yeah, well, see, I would argue Trump is unblackmailable.
Mm,
Okay, so the problem with that is his base don't care. They would
oh,
just
yeah.
say it's lies. It doesn't matter what is brought up. in terms of sleaze or treacherous things. So it has no impact with his base, and he would just tough it out and go, that's from the failing Elon Musk and brush it aside. So I don't think the Epstein stuff has any mileage.
No, I'll tell you, supposedly uh, Anonymous was supposed to come out with some announcement. I saw what they said today, and it was nothing that we didn't know.
Yeah. And
Nothing.
here's exactly, Erica, and I think the problem is, even though there would be enough evidence now to say Kamala did win that election, I have no doubt. Not from a conspiracy theory, it was just too weird for words. But that horse is run.
That's right. The
It wouldn't
election is
matter who are you going
certified.
to talk to. Legacy media aren't going to talk about it. I think. So that's what Trump has done. He's taken all the pillars of a functioning democracy away, one by one by one by one, and it's no longer a functioning democracy because if people cannot be humiliated or embarrassed or flagged for
Didn't.
incredibly bad behavior and it meaning something,
Yeah.
then those values have gone.
It really begs the question as to whether democracy is, I mean, the best form of government if it can be so easily dismantled by one guy.
Well, it was, you could argue too that one other person couldn't have managed it. It was this freak confluence of personality and bringing his people. Most presidents, when they've done a term, I mean, Obama did get elected twice, but it's rare. But even the people who voted for them get cranky with them.
Yeah.
When they're 4 years in and life hasn't changed and stuff. He's managed to swing a decade.
But you know why? Because he appeals to people's basest instincts.
Absolutely.
I mean, generally people will stay kind of buttoned up. They may think what they think, but they won't say whatever it is.
Yeah, he's let it
He's
out of the
let it
bottle.
out like Pandora's box, and that's it. I
Yeah.
don't know. What do you think? I think. Oh, by the way, did you have to read E. Jean Carroll's book?
Oh,
It's
okay.
so well written.
Because she is a writer.
I'm telling you, what a
Oh, thanks
first
for
of
the
all,
tip.
it's so good. She it feels like she's holding your hand and walking you through it and checking your pulse to make sure you're okay in any given moment. But I mean, if anybody could get the best of him, it's she did. She,
Mm.
okay, so what do you think about all this? I mean, I've heard a lot of readers say, I mean, including me, I can't, that this was going to be a pivotal summer in terms of certain people's health and longevity in the position that they hold. But now here we are in the middle of summer, and I'm thinking, I don't know, is he going to go anywhere? Are we going to be,
And I think that's why, as mediums, clairvoyants, or people used to have, it's such difficult terrain, I think, for two reasons. One is, I genuinely believe this, that the universe protects us as in-person everything from the worst of the worst, which is why we often don't see a tsunami or something
hmm,
huge because it'd be too much. And also, I think I started my channel in 2017, and if I'd said then, this guy's going to be around 10 years from now,
oh,
I wouldn't have had an
yeah,
audience, right?
yeah.
But I think this is part of, sorry, what was your original question? Because I
I
was
mean,
thinking,
I really, well, we all,
the summer, the
yeah, this,
pivotal summer. Yeah.
mhm.
Now, even if it's a live thing. That's what we're all wrestling with. Because even 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, I would have said, just as a friend to a friend, look, if Trump goes, it'll all fall over because it's held together by his perverse charisma. And that would have been that. But
Too late
now
for that now.
I doubt it because of the legal system. The legal system has now paved the way for a corrupt regime to operate above ground,
Hmm.
no matter who's at the helm. So it's more worrying to me than it was
Yeah.
even 2 months ago because I thought it all rested on him. He has a heart attack, end of story.
Oh, yeah.
Because, but that I'm not feeling that now.
No, I think you're right. I think the tentacles have sort of infiltrated the entire system. Uh,
Hmm.
that was part of Project 2025.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that they can't see Vance uh, in behind the Resolute desk. That when they try to see it or when they look at their cards, they don't see Vance there.
Now, that could go either way. So, in the sense, should something happen to the Yeti, just like Kamala and Joe, he would be put in a holding pattern,
Right?
but he would still have to go through that process. I don't know that they would choose him as a party because, again, he's not that popular. But their power now is so out there. When we use the word radical, we tend to think of the radical left. We are dealing with the radical, rabid
That's
right.
right. That's right. That's true.
And this hasn't been seen since the 20s and 30s.
Mhm.
Now, just going global again for a minute, the far right in Europe was gaining traction. They went from being a fringe group, and then I remember when they cracked 10% of the vote in France, it was like world ending that the
Mhm.
far right should go. Then they were starting to routinely get 20%, and
Yeah.
they were lurching that way until all this tariff nonsense and stuff, and that saved Germany from going to the far right. Canada was about to
Canada.
go
That's right.
conservative. We were about to go conservative too. Albo was dead in the water. So other countries sort of looked at it and had the presence of mind to go, we've let this drift and it's not a good look.
Mhm.
The US hasn't got there yet, so has to live that experience of what it means and what it feels like and what happens to families under the far right.
I think you're right, and that's why when people say, "Well, how much longer is this going to go?" I think you're right. I think we have to pay our dues experientially in that way, the way that the rest of Europe has and the rest of the world has had to pay. Yeah,
Mm. And the difference was, I think, looking at history and other countries and what was happening to make these deductions that this is not good, whereas America is notorious and spectacularly bad at looking out comparatively,
yeah, I
which
agree.
is why the country's still a million miles from universal health care.
That's right.
Even though Bernie has tried to say every day for 20 years, but this isn't how it is in Italy or Australia or Canada. And la 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 will not look at that. You just have to use the S word and it's all over.
Yes, that's the problem. Yes,
That's the problem. And so I think we are looking at the United States being a radically reduced power, which I think will ultimately be in a better interest because I've jokingly said for years, if you want to rule the world, you need to be able to draw a map of it.
exactly. Exactly. No, I think we need to be right-sized in terms of our understanding of ourselves and our importance in the world.
Yeah, and it's just like England, and I separate it from the UK because of the colonial history. So it's the same
Right.
for England. It was inconceivable that it became the mighty empire that it did and everything that represented in terms of manipulation of the world.
Mhm.
So the Opium Wars on China, People are carrying on about fentanyl. What about the opium wars in China?
Yeah.
The separation of India
Hmm.
into India and Pakistan, the whole slave trade, everything did. So England, this tiny little place, controlled a quarter of the world's people, I believe, at its
Yeah.
height.
Yeah.
I mean, the creation of Australia as a penal colony, all this manipulation of power. And now the empire's gone.
Yeah. Look at them now. Yeah. That's right.
Just saying.
Just saying. Exactly.
A
Exactly. A cautionary tale. And here we are.
cautionary tale, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think it's
I don't
probably
think it's a
much
bad.
better for
That's what I
England to
said.
realize, okay, look,
That's what I said 20 minutes ago, is that I don't
yeah,
think it's a bad thing
yeah,
for us to be brought down to size.
yeah. Because if you look at a map of the northern continent and you take off Canada, Alaska's only a recent addition,
Right?
you take off Mexico, it- it's not that big.
Right.
I think Hawaii would love to go back to a sovereign state just with trade arrangements with
Sure.
the mainland. So you can visibly see it. But I agree with you. Not such a terrible thing.
It's not such a terrible thing. And I think that's a hard thing for people to hear. But as you say, all you have to do is to look at the history of colonialism, to see that it's not all it's cracked up to be in the end. And,
Mm,
you have to pay the piper in the end.
yeah, yeah.
I-
Oh.
So the next thing that's coming up is, well, the tariffs on the 9th.
Yes, we haven't even got the ninth. Okay, so, and next time we'll be seeing how the tariffs play out more. So we must put that on our list for next time.
Is he taco
But
again or not?
I'm actually fascinated in a sense, and I want people to take heart from this. I think if the Yeti was doing all this and Project 2025 was doing all this and there were no tariffs mentioned, if it was literally business as usual, I would be more worried.
Yes.
I
I
think the repercussions from the tariffs are going to be so colossal. That is the only thing I can see that will bring this man down. Like, apart from a health event is not going to save the country now. I
no.
think that's what we were just talking about. But the shock and awe of the reaction to the tariffs could put Project 2025 to bed.
Well, I think when you've got natural disasters on the one hand, and the fact
Yes.
that you can't buy your kids back to school clothes on the
Yeah.
other hand, or Christmas presents or anything
Yeah.
like that. I mean, I think that'll be the big squeeze for him.
I'm really hoping. Then what he'll probably do is shell out money like a drunken sailor, like he did last time to bail out the funds. So again, people can be bought off quite easily. It worries me. You know,
That's why it's up to people who have a platform, like you, like me, and people with other kinds of bigger platforms to just say, do you recognize what this is? Do you realize what's going on? Don't believe everything you see.
yeah, yeah. We're at the beginning
Yeah,
of this,
yeah.
at the
Just
absolute beginning,
mhm.
in that sense of where the tariffs are going and what that means and who is it serving really. And people, I think, had no idea how the global supply chain was so integrated because most people don't think in economic terms. It's just whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, they're about to find out. We're all about to find out. So,
Yeah.
okay, so then the day after that, or not the day after, but the next thing after that is the 17th.
Mm,
That's the next big No Kings protest. And
mm.
he is just,
Gotta be huge. Gotta be
well,
huge.
it's got to be huge, but it's got to be peaceful because he is
Oh, yeah,
dying for it to be violent.
totally. And I
Afraid.
think the protesters have handled it so far really well in terms of that.
Yeah.
and not to be baited, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know now that I mean I'm in California, so between ICE and the Marines and the people being trigger happy and not paid and sleeping on cement, which is what apparently the National Guard are doing. Um, there's some trigger hair tempers out there with weapons
Oh, yeah. And as we all know, when you're our age, it can all turn on a
on
dime.
a dime.
8 hours of peaceful protest and then dunk. And they put in saboteurs. That's part of what they do,
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
break windows and to do, like,
Yeah. So I'm
so,
worried about the 17th. And again, well, my solution to the whole thing, like I said, is a general strike. I'm just
yeah,
saying, stay home
love a
and
general strike.
don't, yeah, just don't buy anything. Don't go to work. But
I think what is fascinating is the boycotts of some of the larger chains.
yeah,
And am I right in thinking, I think this is a role that the Black community
we
is
already have. We've shut down Target. And
spearheading
what we say
this.
about Target is this was no temporary thing. They're dead to us. We will
I love it.
never put our foot back in Target.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, that's really powerful.
yeah, yeah. And we've got to grab the wins where they are.
Hmm. That's
But I
right.
think the whole thing, just to sort of pull it together, is people have been inculcated with the capitalist dream to the extent they can't conceive of another form of social organization or financial runnings of things.
Right.
Can't conceive of it. It's like it's the only model in the world and has to be preserved. But here's what I think with the Curtis Yarvins and the tech boys. Although they wanted to run around and break things, I don't think they thought for a minute that all the global trade would be disrupted to this extent. They thought they'd be the disruptors.
That's right. They thought they would be the disruptors.
They thought, let's shake this out and we'll come out on top. I think they are actually shocked.
Good.
Yeah, love it.
Good. Well, fingers crossed that that's true and that they've been thrown off their game, hopefully permanently.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. How's the weather there? Is it cold?
Freezing.
Really?
Sunny, but freezing. But
Mm.
I live in a cold city. You can go further north where I grew up, it's 100 degrees most of the time.
Oh my God.
Not that much, but high 80s and 90s most of the year.
Well, I'm sending you some California sunshine.
Warmth.
Yes.
California sun. Yeah, that's
I'm so glad we managed to connect and we will do it again next month and we will have the 9th behind us. We'll have the 17th behind us and
so there'll be plenty to talk
plenty to
about
talk about.
too.
Absolutely.
So just one more word on the no kings. I'm optimistic, but it's like it to have had such a big protest with no incident. It's so important for everyone to just stay calm.
That's
Stay
right.
calm.
Stay calm. And Black people, I say stay home. I'm just saying.
Oh, and totally. And I love the way it's virtually absolute, like,
Yes. Oh
I mean,
yeah.
that's
We all got the
tautology.
memo. We all got
Yeah,
the memo.
yeah, regardless of people's individual politics or class or
That's right.
anything. It's like,
And again, I mean, as I've said before, it doesn't mean that we're not all about the cause. It's not just because we're tired, although we are. It's strategic. We know if we
absolutely.
come out, the batons, the dogs, the water hoses, the
It's imperative.
we'll
It's
follow.
absolutely imperative.
Right.
Yeah. And
So,
go the boycotts.
and yes, and let's expand those boycotts. Well, Lena, thank you so much.
My absolute
My
pleasure.
my audience is thrilled to see that you're in one piece.
Yes.
Freezing, but in one piece. And you all, she will be back with us again next month. So thank you all for watching, and you'll see me
Thanks,
early in the week
guys.
next week, and we'll see Dr. Lena in a month. Okay, take care, everybody.
Fabulous.